deeper contrast between ENFJs and INFJs. And we're going to start off first by cognitive function stack. Now, if you're not familiar with the cognitive function stack, you need to be, especially if you're going to be learning about MBTI. Don't just be going off of, oh, my P is a little bit more than my J. It doesn't work like that, honestly. Taking away the cognitive functions from MBTI is literally like taking away Jesus from the gospel, because the gospel was founded from Jesus. MBTI was founded from the cognitive function, but no heresy involved with that. I know that. Yeah. My cognitive function stack as an ENFJ is extroverted feelings, my dominant function. Auxiliary is introverted intuition. Tertiary is extroverted sensing. And then my final one is introverted thinking. And for an INFJ, it's kind of switched. Like the first two and the last two are switched. So for you, it would be...
I guess, okay, introverted intuition, extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, and finally extroverted sensing.
Right. And the way that this plays out in our differences is that since I lead with extroverted feeling, then me being an ENFJ, ENFJs tend to look at social dynamics first and how things emotionally impact another person, and they tend to be a little bit more skilled at that than the INFJ. So they're a lot better with, or a little bit better with creating boundaries and understanding how relationships work. So since the ENFJ looks at social dynamics first, their intuition being second is more of like a supplement where they'll essentially look at what's going on behind the scenes by getting into other people's perspective and mind to uncover hidden information after they've already looked at the social dynamics. And then the INFJ kind of does the reverse.
Right, where we sort of pay attention to people's motives and hidden agendas first, and then we see how it plays out in the social dynamic. So like people usually, even Denzel has said on one occasion that I'm often very suspicious. I mean, it's always just looking at people like they have a hidden agenda and I don't know what it is type of thing first, then getting to know them gradually.
Funny thing is, sometimes, well, I would say like a good number of times, David is right. I mean, our dominant function is what we've been living in our whole life.
Right.
And so introvert intuition being his dominant function, that's what he's like gotten like really good at. He lives in that. He swims in that. That's his world. My thing's extroverted feeling, where that's where I swim at, and introvert intuition is more of like a creative thing, as well as like his extroverted feelings more of like a creative growth place, and that's where we're supposed to like continue to help each other in growing up to. So due to all of what we just said, ENFJs also tend to be a lot more talented in relationship coaching, because extroverted feeling is all about looking at the social dynamics and how people emotionally affect each other, as opposed to INFJs,
where we do more individual coaching and counseling, because we like to focus on one thing, one person at a time, and it's all about getting to know that person and helping them develop on a personal level, because that's mainly what we focus on, people on an individual level.
So each type has 2 judging functions and 2 perceiving functions. Judging means decision making. So we'll call these 2 decision making functions and then 2 learning functions. Our decision making functions are our feeling or thinking functions. And then our learning functions are our sensing and intuition functions. So me and David being ENFJ, INFJ, our decision-making functions are extroverted feeling and introverted thinking. Gotcha. And then our perceiving functions are introverted intuition, also known as NI, and extroverted sensing, also known as SE. And extroverted feeling and introverted thinking are known as FE and TI, just for future reference. So because me being an ENFJ, I lead with the decision-making function, then we tend to be more decisive than an INFJ would be, because we have extroverted feeling, which is our decision-making function, more developed, more comfortable for us, and so we just happen to have like a knack for making decisions quickly due to that leading function.
For example, today, when we're walking here, we were faced with crossing the street at a red light, and you ran, and I'm like, wait. And I'm like, because there were cars coming.
If I waited, I would have got hit by a car.
But I waited, and I didn't get hit by a car. So it was just like, same result, different methods.
That's true. That is very true.
Which brings me to my point that INFJs usually aren't very good with making quick decisions. Like, you never want to put an INFJ in a position where they have to make a really quick decision at like an opportune time, because that puts stress on them, and they want to take their time to figure out what's going to logically happen next, and we do a lot of future pacing, so we like to anticipate what could happen and what's going in the long-term effects of whatever we choose. So to put us in a position where we have to make a quick decision is not always the easiest, and it's very challenging because that's not our knack. That's not what we do first.
ENFJs, I would say they're more of the types to, since they have that extroverted sensing as their tertiary function, and introverted intuition is more of like a supplement, then they're more like action oriented. So they'll jump into a situation, and then their intuition will sort of like be a guide and back them up, as opposed to an INFJ who, what would you say with that?
They would be more inclined to take a step back and think, okay, how is this going to end up? Like, what is the logical process of what will most likely happen here before I even make my first move? So I guess they see everything as more of a chess game. They're thinking 10 steps ahead, like, okay, if I do this, that's going to happen. And if I do that, that's fine, because then that's going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and that's going to happen. Okay, I'll make this move now.
It kind of reminds me of a quote. I heard this quote that says, successful people don't make the right decisions. They make the decisions that they make right. And I would say that the ENFJ is more like that, where it's like, okay, they just jump into it, and even if it could have been potentially a wrong decision, their intuition either makes that decision right for them, or somehow they just make that decision right. Where an INFJ, on the other hand, will make sure to stay back and find out what exactly is the right decision ahead of time. And David, the other day, he gave a very good example of like a broken bridge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you should definitely go on that. It completely encapsulates what I was talking about. So, actually, like, real quick, the way that even came up was, I usually tell people that one thing between ENFJs and INFJs is it's not really a race. We're not in competition with each other, but I would say that they reach the same place at the end of their life. It's just that since the ENFJ goes with their intuition, and the INFJ is more of like a planner to like get the path right and then goes, then it's kind of like this. If they're all trying to like get here by the end of their life, then this is how it would go. ENFJ, INFJ. And eventually they reach the same spot. And when I brought that up to David, then David was like, oh yeah, that actually kind of makes me think like this is how you are. So
okay, so he's always been the more like adventurous, like Tommy Pickles. So I don't know. I've always thought of Tommy Pickles when I thought of him. So he's always been the type that jumps into things more, and I've always been the type of like, I don't know if that's a good idea. So my analogy is, you have an ENFJ and an INFJ about to cross a bridge over a very treacherous ravine, right? And it's very dangerous down there. There's even piranhas down there, and the bridge is not very safe. Like, it's very rickety. There's missing boards and stuff like that. And the ENFJ jumps right onto the bridge. And as they're going onto the bridge, they can see what's ahead of them immediately. And they're like, oh, dang, if I step there, I'm going to fall. So they just kind of hopscotch it. And they make their way across as they go along. And they're like, oh, wow, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. Okay, I'm going to go here. All right, now I'm good. Whereas the INFJ is still on the other side. And they're like,
That is totally mean.
Okay, so I'm going to go here, 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 here. And then I'm going to have to jump, and then really jump again, and then I'll be there. And then they go. So it's basically the same process. However, one is a little bit more detached in the external reality of things, whereas the other one just jumps right in and says, you know what, I'm going for it, and I'll make the best of it as I go along.
Exactly. That's actually exactly right. I would say that's exactly how it is. And it's not necessarily that ENFJs don't really like plan. It's more of they have become so good at planning along the way, or planning just enough before they get going, as opposed to INFJ planning everything out first and then going. So the ENFJs are not completely spontaneous. They're still judges. They're still INFJs, they still do long-term planning, but I would say they're more of like, oh, I'll plan like about 70% or 75% of what I'm gonna do, and then the rest of the 25% I'm gonna just leave up to my intuition to use all right, I'm not gonna let this load up to 100%. Like, let's just go, and we're gonna make it with this. And then the INFJ is more of the type to allow that to load up to like 95%, and probably even 100% before they start to like make moves and everything. And so, yeah, they're still, ENFJs are still planners, but definitely, like you just said, like more adaptable, more like let's get going, more like on the move, as opposed to INFJs who would like sit there and make sure that every hole is like really like cracked more. And I think that goes into your introverted thinking, which is like all about like accuracy. So that's their tertiary function. Like my tertiary function is extroverted sensing, so it's all about like being in the moment and just going out and doing it. His is more of like, what makes sense? Like how can this
doing it right now?
Yeah. What makes sense? Like how exactly does this like logically match up? Like what would be the most logical decision to do? And one of the things that I mentioned this in the NF's low-key suck video is that because David has introverted thinking as his third function, and every type seems to like go through a loop, the INFJs seem to go through an NI introvert intuition loop, an NI and TI loop, where they stay in their internal world of introverted thinking and introverted intuition, and you guys become like very critical. The last contrast that I would like to make is that as an ENFJ, we go through our loop of FE, SE, where we sort of ignore our introvert intuition side of us, like looking for that deeper meaning and all of that, and just being like engaged in the external world. So like this can come off as like being very sensory indulgent, just having lots of fun, being very loud and obnoxious. Like we probably basically look like ESFPs, only like 10-year-old ESFPs. And I know that Jamila and Tay and Kylisa, they can definitely relate to this. They've seen that side of me, and it's not a bad thing if you like just bring it out like in spurts, like when you're having fun. But if this is like a constant state that you're in as an ENFJ, that's not healthy. Make sure that you really ground yourself in that introverted intuition, so that you do have meaning behind everything that you are like perspective shifting and just going deeper within yourself.